Hey Ricardo, thank you again for all your passion in the 911 industry. Thank you for the I Am 911 movement that you've started. August the 24th coming up here, National I Am 911 Day, giving us an opportunity to share our stories. Uh, Started out in communications 22 years ago this month, actually August 1997. Um, The At the time, I was a volunteer EMT in our local emergency squad, and we had our local 911 center had just opened up about 2.5 years prior, so they were offering tours for the local fire and EMS personnel, and we went in and took a tour of the facility, and learned about how the 911 calls come into the center, and then eventually we finally got to go inside and actually see the communications floor itself, which was really exciting. At the time, there was only about 4 dispatchers on duty, if I recall. They got these very large CRT screens that they were using for their CAD, and their phone system was these large box phones with what seemed to be a million lights on them. Unfortunately, at the time, we got to see some action. We weren't in the communications center long before those phones started to light up like a Christmas tree. And I remember being in awe watching them field all these phone calls and saying, this is really cool. And then learning of the call that was coming in. It was a bad accident up on the interstate. A couple of tractor trailers and a couple of cars were involved. Watching these 4 dispatchers work together as a team, notifying state police, coordinating fire rescue resources, paramedics, helicopters on standby, and even reaching out over into the neighboring state to get heavy rescue services coming in. And they did all this in like about 60 seconds. And I remember going, wow, this is really cool. At the time, I was in sales, and in sales, your big moment is that point of sale. And I remember thinking to myself, there isn't anything that I can sell that's going to give me that adrenaline rush that I just saw. And I was like, this is the place to be. So at the end of the tour, we were walking out, and I got a hold of the director, and I said, hey, by any chance, are you guys hiring? And they said, yeah, as a matter of fact, we are. And within 30 days, I was on a group of trainees. There was 6 of us at the time, and from that day forward, I absolutely loved every single day of it. It was again a big rush, and every day you go into work, it's always a new day. Nothing's ever the same, so that's what makes it extra special. However, with that comes a lot of calls. There's a lot of worst calls. But there are calls that eventually break us, and at the time of my worst call would be the call I would consider that it broke me. At the time, I had 25 years in the EMS in the field, 15 years in communication. In the field, you see the blood, guts, and gore, things you don't ever forget. The weight of a human head in your hand, the smells, just things that will never leave your mind. On the communication side, the distraught parents calling in agony over their lifeless infant as you're trying to give CPR instructions, the screams of the domestic violence victims, or general pleas for help that come almost on a daily basis. And 15 years of those calls, fielding those calls on the phone, I kind of thought I was pretty tough. I thought I'd heard everything. Nothing's going to break me. Until one afternoon when I get a call from a young boy who had just gotten home from school with his younger sister, and he had found his father deceased in the basement of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And he was pretty graphic in the details. I knew that there wasn't anything this 10-year-old boy was going to be able to do to save his father. So I coached him to go upstairs. And as he's making his way up the stairs, his younger sister is coming down the stairs. And I immediately think to myself, oh my God, we can't let this young girl see her father downstairs. And I hear her ask him, is Daddy downstairs? I want to show him the picture I made in school. And that was the moment that I broke. Hearing that young innocent voice looking for Daddy, feeling so proud of something that she wanted to show him. I was kind of lost for words at the moment. And that's where this young boy really stepped in. For being 10, he immediately says to her, Daddy wants us to go upstairs and do our homework and finish our chores before dinner. And I was kind of like, wow, okay, yep, that's it. Let's go upstairs and work on our homework and our chores. So he coaxed her up the stairs the rest of the way. And they were in a part of the county that was serviced by the state police, so it took a little while for people to get there. We even tried to bring in a neighboring jurisdiction to try and speed things up, just to get a safer environment for these children. And during that 17-minute phone call, he matured way beyond his years. I remember listening to him talk to his sister and help her with things, and being proud of him, proud like a father. But as I sat there, my chest hurt, my stomach churned, and it was the longest 17 minutes ever. When I was finally able to disconnect, I needed to excuse myself. I asked the supervisor if he would listen up for me. He said, yeah. And as I walked by him, he paused and he looked at me and he says, hey, you all right, G? And I was like, yeah, no, I'm fine. I just got to go out and use the bathroom. And he kind of looked at me again and he's like, okay, but just get back as soon as you can. We got storms coming. And yes, sir, I'll get in as fast as I can. And I went outside to our picnic area, and I cried for this kid. I couldn't imagine what he'd gone through. And all the while thinking about that young girl just looking for Daddy, wanting to show him her picture. That's all she wanted to do. I think that day that young boy lost his father, the way he matured on the phone, I wonder, did he lose his childhood too? To this day, I wonder, did he ever really get to cry like I did that day? Let's get off of that. Best calls. I don't really have a best call. I had a lot of satisfying calls. Early on in my career, I went from a regional center to a small one dispatcher PSAP, one dispatcher per shift PSAP. When you're in that environment, you have a lot more responsibilities working by yourself. I was working night shift, so working by yourself makes for some really interesting night shifts. And, it has the good side of it that you actually get closure in a call, something that we don't normally get to see. But being in a small department like that, you have more inner workings with the police officers, with the public. You have walk-up people that come through. You're handing out reports. You're taking calls directly from the people, as opposed to over the phone in some cases. So it gets a little bit more personable. But with that comes with a lot more responsibility. And like I said, when the shit's hitting the fan, you don't have anybody there to help you. You're doing it on your own, and it made it a lot more exciting. I recall one night getting a call from a distraught female pleading for help. Her boyfriend apparently was intoxicated, was acting out. He'd been beating her throughout the night. She was scared for her safety and the safety of her children that were in the house as well. And I can hear this guy in the background yelling, throwing things around, just being a total jerk. I get units out there right away. It's not long before they get there and they call one in custody. Great, this guy's under arrest. He's not going to hurt anybody anymore. However, with that, they also made a request for EMS. The female was battered pretty good, but she was okay, but they also needed EMS to tend to injuries to one of the children. Apparently, when this idiot was throwing stuff around, one of the children was hit by it. Thank goodness they're okay, but it's just, it's irritating that something can happen to the innocence of children like that. So the officers bring the guy back to the station and process him and put him in the cell. And again, one of our responsibilities as a dispatcher was to monitor the prisoners in the cells. So this guy, acting out again, decides that he's going to put toilet paper up on the camera so he can't be monitored. So that requires me to actually go into the cell corridor and physically check on his well-being to make sure he's not trying to harm himself, he's breathing okay, that sort of thing. And I walked into the cell block area, and I remember looking at him through the bars, and he's standing there looking back at me. And I just kind of looked at him and I went, And apparently I smiled when I did it because he looks me square in the eye and, what the fuck are you looking at? What are you smiling about? And I didn't say anything, but I just walked away and I had a little grin on my face. I could feel it, that this son of a bitch was right where he belonged, in jail, behind bars. And he's not going to hurt anybody. He's not going to, the children aren't going to be in fear tonight. And he was in jail and I helped put him there. And that was a huge satisfying opportunity. He's not going to hurt anybody anymore, and we put him there. And because of that is why I continued doing what I do. 22 years later, unfortunately, I don't sit the floor on a daily basis like I wish I could. But now, 22 years has put me into a different role. Now a one coordinator and training officer. I get that opportunity to take my 22 years of experience and pass that on to some of our veteran telecommunicators and our new trainees that come on. And it gives me that opportunity to share that wealth of knowledge with them, to try and get them as prepared as possible for the calls that come in. There's nothing worse than being on a phone call and not feeling confident about call location verification, asking the right questions, getting the right information at the right time so our officers are safe. So by giving those trainees that experience through my training to them and passing it along to my CTOs who pass it along to trainees, it makes it a lot better. With that training officer also comes quality assurance, having to listen to the tapes, making sure everybody's doing everything correct. And yes, mistakes are made. We've all made them. I've made them. They're going to be made. But I'm a firm believer in errors are nothing more than learning opportunities. They don't have to be disciplinary. They should be learning opportunities. What can we do to prevent this from happening in the future? And by taking the opportunity, when I listen to these calls, I try to put myself in the exact same environment as the telecommunicator at the time. I'll turn up all the radio channels, all the other ringing phones. I'll even leave the door open in my office so I have the distraction from the other room, because I want to really put myself in their element. If they made a mistake, I want to really see why they made a mistake and what it is that we can do to prevent it. Maybe we need to realign our policies, maybe change them altogether. What happened? Or perhaps was it just a call that they had never actually had the opportunity to deal with before? And that makes a big difference. When a telecommunicator can come into my office and tell me that they've made a mistake without me finding it, uh, because mistakes I take personally. If they've made a mistake, is it something that I missed in their training? Is there something I could have done better? So, I get great satisfaction that they can come into my office and feel confident that they can do so, and we can talk about it, and they can leave with a smile on their face, and they can leave feeling more confident that they can do their job even better. 22 years in, a lot of people might say that they're tired. No, I'm not tired at all. Still look forward to going to work every day because we have the opportunity to save lives every single day. A dispatcher has an opportunity to save more lives in one shift than some people do in an entire career. And to me, that's huge. And that is why I am 911. Thank you.